Welcome to the Sci-Fi Continuum. I'm Stan, your narrator. Make sure you subscribe to our channel for more stories. The hatch hissed open, and the air of Zangul 7 enveloped Jake like a cool electric wave. As he stepped onto the dark, glossy metallic floor of the space hub, his boots clanked rhythmically, echoing in the dim blue light that danced across the intricate corridors. The vibrant blue panels above created a soft glow, illuminating his path toward the conference chamber, while casting playful shadows on the reflective surface beneath him. A single voice crackled through his earpiece, breaking the ambient silence. "Welcome, Envoy Jackson. Follow the lumens to the conference chamber." Jake's eyes flicked from the glowing panels back to the ground, where a subtle seam caught his toe. The next moment, he was a tangled heap of limbs, his body tumbling forward in a most undignified fashion. Just as he braced for the uncomfortable impact, a hand, cool and smooth, grasped his arm, pulling him up with surprising strength. When he straightened, his gaze fell on the source of this unexpected rescue. Vilya stood before him, a striking figure bathed in the soft blue light. Her deep, liquid blue skin gleamed, and her form-fitting suit, a dark gray ensemble with striking black accents, accentuated every curve. The daring cutout in her chest revealed a flash of cleavage, drawing Jake's attention like a magnet. Her long, dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, framing bright green eyes that sparkled with curiosity and mischief. The bold red lipstick on her lips contrasted beautifully against her cool palette, leaving Jake momentarily speechless. He could hardly believe his luck that he had met an alien as stunning and enigmatic as Vilya in the heart of Zangul 7. As Jake steadied himself, the initial awkwardness of his fall faded, replaced by a growing sense of curiosity about his diplomatic partner. Vilya's eyes sparkled, and her lips curled into a knowing smile that made his heart race. "You seem to have a talent for crashing into things, Envoy," she teased, her voice smooth and melodic. "You'll need to keep that in check during negotiations. The Zangul are quite sensitive about decorum." Jake felt a flush rise to his cheeks, but he couldn't help the chuckle that escaped him. "I'm used to crashes, I guess. Earth's not exactly the smoothest place," he replied, gesturing with an open palm. Trying to regain some of his composure, he added, "But I promise to be more graceful from now on." Vilya's eyes narrowed playfully, as if assessing his promise. "Gracefulness is subjective, I suppose. You might find that our cultures differ in many ways, including the way we express affection." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Do the humans even have a handshake? Or do they merely bump hips?" Jake's brain short-circuited for a moment at her suggestion, and it didn't really come back online after that. "Well, we do have a hug," he stammered, flustered by her proximity and the way the blue light glinted off her skin. "Ah, the hug. A curious custom. I have observed it among your kind. Quite awkward yet oddly endearing," she mused, a hint of humor in her tone. "But let us not dwell on Earth's eccentricities. We have a mission to accomplish." With that, she turned on her heel, leading Jake through the long, narrow corridors. The rhythmic pulse of blue light illuminated the path ahead, but his thoughts were a swirling mix of diplomacy and something far more personal. Every time she glanced back at him, her bright green eyes seemed to hold 1,000 unspoken questions, and he couldn't help but wonder if she sensed the tension crackling between them. As they walked, Vilya's movements were effortless, her long legs gliding over the metallic floor as if it were a dance floor. She paused near a particularly shiny section of the path, and without warning, she leaned against the reflective surface, one hand on her hip and the other resting above her head. The pose accentuated her curves, and the light caught her form, creating an alluring silhouette that made Jake's breath hitch. "Shall we discuss the terms of the treaty, or would you prefer to ogle me for another moment?" she teased, breaking the silence and drawing his attention back to the task at hand. Jake forced a grin, feeling his mouth dry. "Both, maybe," he said, the words sounding ridiculous in the echoing hall. "First, the treaty. Then, We can figure out the rest." She laughed, a sound that seemed to vibrate the panels themselves. "Very well, Envoy. The Zangul request a joint mining project on the basalt plains of our moon. In exchange, we will provide you with a sample of our quantum crystal, a resource your scientists have coveted for years." Jake nodded, his mind already racing through the implications. "That sounds fair. Our scientists will be thrilled." He had no idea what she had just said. He was fairly certain he had just agreed to something involving a moon, a crystal, and possibly her collarbone. He glanced at Vilya, trying not to stare at the way the costume's cutout highlighted her chest. "What about trade routes? We need safe passage for our cargo ships." Vilya tilted her head, considering. "We can grant you a protected corridor through the nebula belt, provided you share the blueprint of your anti-gravity propulsion system. It will help us reduce fuel consumption." The two of them went back and forth, exchanging offers, tweaking clauses, and occasionally catching each other's eye with a glance that said more than words ever could. The negotiation stretched for hours, but the pressure of their bodies against each other never eased. Jake found his thoughts drifting to the way Vilya's green eyes seemed to glitter when she smiled, to the curve of her jaw, to the soft sigh that escaped her lips whenever she leaned close. When the final clause was sealed, Vilya extended a slender, translucent tablet. "Signature?" she asked, her voice low enough that only Jake could hear it. He placed his hand on the tablet, the cool surface tingling under his fingertips. As the holographic ink settled, a soft chime echoed through the hub, and a burst of blue light flooded the corridor. Jake realized he had signed a legally binding interstellar treaty while actively wondering what Vilya's skin would feel like against his lips. He hoped that was normal for diplomats. Vilya stepped back, her suit catching the light in a way that made her appear almost otherworldly. "Well done, Envoy Jackson. You have secured peace for both our peoples." Jake let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "And you," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "You were amazing." She smiled, that mischievous curve that had haunted his thoughts since the moment she rescued him. "Your words are flattering." She glanced toward the exit, where the dim glow of the outside world beckoned. "The night on Zangul is still young, and I have noticed your fascination with the view from the observation deck. Perhaps you would like to see it?" Jake hesitated for a split second, then felt a surge of confidence. He had survived crash landings, hostile planets, and now a diplomatic crisis. A little romance was something he could handle. "I'd love that." He had no memory of agreeing. He would have followed her into a reactor core at this point. Together they walked toward the observation dome, the metallic floor humming beneath their boots. The dome's transparent surface framed the swirling nebula beyond, a cascade of violet and silver that seemed to pulse with life. The blue light inside the hub dimmed, leaving only the stars and the soft illumination from the dome's panels. Vilya turned to face Jake, the reflection of the nebula dancing across her skin. "You look different when you're not worrying about treaties," she said, her voice husky. Jake chuckled, feeling the tension in his chest melt away. "I'm just trying to keep up with you." He reached out, his hand brushing the cool glass. "You've got a way of making everything brighter." She lifted her hand, letting it rest lightly against his cheek. The contact sent a jolt through his nerves, and for a moment his mind went blank. "You're intoxicating," she whispered, the word hanging in the air like a promise. Jake's heartbeat thundered, his thoughts narrowing to the curve of her neck, the sway of her hips, the way her suit clung to her form. "And you're a marvel," he replied, his voice low. "A marvel I'd like to explore." She laughed, a sound that seemed to echo in the void outside. "Then let us explore, together." The moment stretched, then collapsed into a cascade of motion. Vilya leaned forward, her lips finding his in a kiss that was both tender and fierce. The taste of her red lipstick was sweet, and the pressure of her body against his sent a wave of heat through his spine. He wrapped his arms around her, feeling the strength of her alien muscles, the way her flesh molded to his own. Their kiss deepened, and the world outside the dome fell away. Jake's hands roamed over the sleek fabric of her suit, feeling the ridges of the black accents, the smoothness of the gray material. Vilya responded in kind, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw, the scar on his forearm from an old skirmish. With a fluid motion, she guided him down onto the cool, smooth floor of the dome, the nebula's light painting their bodies in shifting hues. Her suit's cutout offered an invitation, and Jake's lips followed, tracing the delicate curve of her cleavage. He teased and suckled, his hands sliding down her hips to grip the firm curve of her backside. Her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer as her breath hitched. "More," she whispered, her voice a ragged plea. Jake obliged, his lips trailing a path down her stomach. He paused, his fingers hooking into the fabric, and with a shared glance of understanding, Vilya helped him peel away the last barrier between them. Her body was a masterpiece of alien grace, her blue skin glowing in the starlight. "Your body is a marvel," he said, voice husky. Vilya gasped, her hips bucking as he explored her. Her fingers gripped his shoulders, her moans mingling with the hum of the dome's panels. "Jake," she breathed, her voice trembling. "Please." He rose over her, his own need pulsing. With a slow, deliberate motion, he entered her, her body welcoming him with a tight, velvety heat. They moved together, their rhythm a dance of passion and discovery, the nebula's light painting their sweat-slicked bodies in shades of violet and silver. Vilya's nails dug into his back, her cries of pleasure echoing in the vastness of space. Jake's own release built, a tidal wave of sensation that crested with a final, powerful thrust. They collapsed against each other, breathing heavily, the nebula painting a luminous backdrop. Vilya placed a hand on Jake's chest, feeling the steady thump of his heart. "That was unexpected," she admitted, a grin tugging at the corner of her mouth. Jake chuckled, feeling a warmth spread through his entire being. Unexpected is a good word for it. He turned his head to look at her, his eyes lingering on the curve of her lips. "You're more than a diplomatic partner." She lifted her chin, meeting his gaze. "And you, Envoy Jackson, are more than a clumsy human." The honesty in her voice made his chest swell. They spent the rest of the night on the observation deck, talking about their worlds, their hopes, and the tiny things that made life worth living. Jake contributed to the conversation as best he could, but privately he was operating on what felt like 12% brain capacity and 88% vivid recollection of Vilya's body. Jake shared stories of Earth's oceans, of rainstorms that sounded like drums on rooftops. The conversation flowed easily, laughter ringing out as they swapped jokes about interstellar bureaucracy and the absurdity of translating alien idioms. When dawn approached, an amber glow from the sun rising over the horizon of Zangul 7, Vilya stood and stretched, her blue skin shimmering. "It seems the night must end," she said, a hint of wistfulness in her tone. Jake rose, his muscles still humming from the intimacy they'd shared. "I suppose we have to go back to the conference," he replied, though his heart ached at the thought of leaving this moment. She walked to the door, paused, and turned to him. "There is a garden on the lower decks, filled with bioluminescent vines that glow like fireflies. If you're willing, I would like to show it to you tomorrow. Perhaps we can discuss more than treaties." Jake smiled, the simple joy of the offer lighting up his face. "I'd like that," he said, his voice steady. "Very much." The next day, the treaty ceremony was held before a council of Zangul elders and Earth representatives. Jake stood beside Vilya, the same pair who had sparked a fire moments before. Their eyes met across the assembly, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they now shared. When Vilya stepped forward to address the council, her voice rang clear and confident. "This treaty marks the beginning of an alliance that will benefit both our peoples," she declared. "It also proves that understanding can blossom even when two very different worlds collide." Jake followed, his words echoing her sentiment. He delivered the speech flawlessly, which was impressive, considering his brain had not fully rebooted since the hallway incident. "We are ready to work together, to share knowledge, to protect each other. And on a personal note, I have discovered that the greatest discoveries are often the ones we do not expect." Applause rippled through the chamber, a wave of sound that resonated with the blue panels overhead. The agreement was signed, the quantum crystal handed over, and the protected corridor through the nebula belt opened for Earth ships. After the ceremony, Vilya led Jake to the garden she had promised. The lower deck was a cavern of twisting vines that glowed with soft pink and violet light, each leaf pulsing in time with a faint, melodic hum. The air was cool, the floor a smooth stone that felt comfortable underfoot. They walked hand in hand, the alien flora swaying gently as if greeting them. Vilya stopped beside a cluster of blossoms that emitted a steady, warm glow. "This is where I come to think," she said, resting her head against the nearest vine. "My thoughts are clearer when the light dances." Jake pulled her close, resting his cheek against the back of her neck. "Then let's think together." They stood like that for a long while, the galaxy humming beyond the glass dome, the stars blinking like distant witnesses. A sense of peace settled over them, an understanding that their future would be built on both politics and the tender moments they shared. When the night grew deep, Vilya turned to Jake, her eyes alight with a mischievous spark. "You still have that clumsy charm," she teased. "I think you've earned a permanent seat at our table." Jake laughed, feeling the weight of the world lift off his shoulders. "I'll take any seat that lets me be near you." They kissed once more, a gentle promise that their story was only beginning. The treaty had secured peace between two worlds, but the real miracle was the bond that had formed in a hallway of blue light. Later, as the first Zangul sunrise painted the sky in shades of gold and amber, Jake and Vilya stood at the edge of the garden, watching the universe wake. "Where do we go from here?" Vilya asked, her voice soft. Jake placed his hand over his heart, feeling its steady thrum. "We keep building, keep talking, keep exploring." He smiled, pulling her close. "And maybe, if the council lets us, we could schedule a few more off-duty encounters." She chuckled, the sound bright as the morning light. "Deal, Envoy Jackson." Their laughter mingled with the chirp of the bioluminescent vines, a chorus that sang of unity, of love, and of a future where a human and an alien could walk side by side through the stars. In the end, the treaty was signed, the peace held, and the two lovers, one human, one Zangul, found a happiness that no council could have drafted. Jake would later reflect that first contact had gone remarkably well, all things considered. The treaty held, the alliance prospered, and his brain, unfortunately, never entirely recovered. Their story became a legend told in the halls of both worlds, a reminder that sometimes the most important negotiations happen not over parchment, but in the quiet moments when two beings truly see each other. And so, under the ever-watchful gaze of distant galaxies, Jake and Vilya stepped forward together, ready for whatever adventure the cosmos would throw at them next. Their hearts, once strangers, now beat in a shared rhythm, steady, bold, and unmistakably alive. Expanded and exclusive Sci-Fi Continuum stories are available as ebooks. Links in the description.